Daniel, final one from me. I just want to ask you about a quote from your boss, Zak Brown, made earlier in the week, in which he said, "Your time with the team hasn't lived up to expectations." What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's not false. It's pretty true. You know, it's something that, well, firstly, like comments, I don't take personal. My skin is tanned, beautiful, and also thick. But it's, yeah, I mean, it hasn't, you know, like no one's going to be harder on me than myself, you know, and I know that I don't want to be racing around 10th, 12th places. You know, I still believe I can be at the front and belong at the front. So it's been a little bit more certainly testing at times in terms of obviously trying to get up and maximize myself in this car. But yeah, we're working together hard at it, and the team wants it, I want it. So yeah, we're just working through it.
Looked like a really tricky day out there. The car looked very tricky to drive in those wet conditions.
Certainly tricky. I mean, these conditions, it's not often you drive in Monaco in the wet. And I mean, the wet is already a handful, and let alone, you know, on the tightest street circuit. So yeah, it was really, we got to a point where we were slow on the extreme, but to fit an Inter for a few laps, I thought I would have just lost more time. So tried to ride it out till I could just put a slick on. And but yeah, we were, I mean, ultimately this weekend just, yeah, wasn't a good weekend. Just not really quick throughout, and yeah, that was the race. Obviously, we know Monaco; it's so track dependent, track position dependent, and yeah, just obviously a tough weekend to take. Unfortunately, I'm experienced with these. Had a few of them the last 12 months, so I feel like I can handle them a little bit better. Therefore, I will continue to smile, or at least try to smile. But yeah, deep down, obviously disappointed. But yeah, I'll look at it now, debrief and whatever. But just probably take a few days off. I have a few friends here and try to just enjoy some moments away from the track, and then reset for Baku.
The early signs that it's a bit more Monaco specific, and that maybe it's when you get to another track where the car is more suited, you might be a bit more comfortable with things, or is it something a little bit more concerning?
It's tough. Like, I mean, no mistake, Monaco, you need confidence. You need to be at one with the car, you know, and for sure, if you're not quite there, then yeah, it can show on the stopwatch. So as much as I love this place, at the core, that's what you need. So yeah, it can probably exaggerate it a little bit, but yeah, I would say there is still some stuff to get on top of, and obviously it's been a while now, so I wish it still wasn't the case, but I think the reality is that, and yeah, I think, you know, there will be some tracks where it just clicks from the first practice and we're good, but I think I'll expect to probably still work at it and try to keep trying. Yeah, that's it. I'll won't go down without a fight, but of course I don't wish to be fighting for 13th, so try to get back in the points soon.
Hi guys, this is the Casual Fan. Daniel Ricciardo has not had the best of starts to the 2022 F1 season. We can all go into the nitty-gritty of how he has been outclassed by Lando Norris in the same car. But that's common knowledge now. The driver, signed on a very high salary, was supposed to be the leading driver at McLaren when he first joined the team last season. But with what has been a snowball effect of one thing going wrong after the other, in the last 1.5 years, we have Daniel Ricciardo staring at a situation where he could be looking at an early exit from the team, as not only McLaren but the driver himself appears to have lost the patience to make it work together. Now in this video, what we are looking at is the fact that the Australian's career was always primed for a tragic end ever since he stepped up to drive for Red Bull in 2014. In 2022, that tragic end is finally unfolding in front of us. Well, to find out how we reached here, we need to take a look back at Ricciardo's Formula 1 career. It all started with his promotion to Toro Rosso after half a season in the trenches with HRT in 2011. At Toro Rosso, Ricciardo was paired with Jean-Eric Vergne, another promising Red Bull junior driver. The two drivers went hammer and tongs against each other for 2 seasons, but by the end of the second season, it started to become more and more clear that Ricciardo was the better driver of the two. Hence, when Webber retired at the end of the 2013 Formula 1 season, Ricciardo got the drive for Red Bull. In 2014, Ricciardo's very first season with Red Bull, he did the unthinkable. He beat the reigning 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel, and more importantly, he did that convincingly. In the eyes of many pundits and fans, Ricciardo had the best performance out of anyone on the grid in the 2014 season. He picked up 3 wins, only behind the 2 Mercedes drivers, and with Vettel deciding to make a move to Ferrari and emulate what his idol Michael Schumacher had done, Ricciardo assumed the role of team leader at Red Bull. Now, the 2015 season was the first season with Ricciardo as the top driver at Red Bull. The season featured a further drop in performance for Red Bull as both Williams and Ferrari appeared to hold an edge. Ricciardo still did his thing, and although his new teammate Daniel Ricciardo outscored him, Ricciardo was still widely considered the better driver of the two. The 2016 season saw Max Verstappen's introduction to Red Bull and his first win in his very first race in Barcelona. From 2016 onwards, with the immediate impact that Verstappen had with the win, Red Bull started a process of slowly but steadily leaning towards the young Dutch driver. Ricciardo on his part held the upper hand in 2016. Things were more or less even in 2017, but it all changed in 2018 when the rather rash collision between Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo at Baku saw both the drivers facing the heat from the team instead of only Max, who was probably far too aggressive against his own teammate. Ricciardo saw the writing on the wall and made a move outside Red Bull. At the end of the 2018 F1 season, Ricciardo made a shock move to Renault to build a team around him and do something similar to what Lewis Hamilton had done so successfully at Mercedes. But after a year with the team in 2019, Ricciardo made the switch to McLaren after looking at Renault's growth trajectory and seemingly not being happy with what he had seen in Renault in a year. Now, Ricciardo's stay at Renault was short and sweet. He was the lead driver against both Esteban Ocon and Nico Hülkenberg and gave the team its first podium. At that moment, his move to McLaren did seem justified as the Woking-based squad was making improvements left, right and centre. McLaren had finished third in the championship at the end of the 2020 F1 season, and it did appear that this was the logical progression for the Australian, who ultimately wanted to fight and win the world title. And that brings us to Ricciardo's stay at McLaren. Life at McLaren had started in a rather uncomfortable way for Ricciardo, as the driver was unable to adapt his driving style to the car. Norris outperformed him pretty much for the entire season except a handful of cases here and there, with one of them being the Italian Grand Prix where Ricciardo won the race. The 2021 season was somewhat written off for this very reason, as the fans and the pundits assumed that the car under Ricciardo was not to his liking. The 2022 season was expected to be a return for Daniel Ricciardo of the old. He was expected to be back at his best, driving like he always used to, fast and consistent and one of the best on the grid. Sadly though, the 2022 season has not panned out that way, as the gap that Norris had last season still exists. The advantage that Norris enjoyed over Ricciardo, it's still there. And finally, to rub the salt into all of this, Zak Brown, the McLaren boss, has come out and publicly said that Ricciardo's performances ever since he has joined McLaren have not met either his or the team's expectations. As a result, Ricciardo did look slightly tentative about everything and was not his usual self throughout the Monaco GP weekend. If we are brutally honest about everything, this might be the time when the Ricciardo-McLaren marriage finally heads for a split. Now this is what brings us to the crucial point that we've been trying to make. Every driver feels he's worthy of becoming a world champion and is the best in the world, until they meet someone as good or better than them. In case of Daniel Ricciardo, in retrospect, his run against Sebastian Vettel in 2014 was probably not the best thing to have happened to him. Before that season, Ricciardo was considered one of the promising prospects, a driver that was going to do great things in the sport with the talents that he had at his disposal. But after the 2014 season, the outlook changed completely. Ricciardo was now the team leader at Red Bull. He was considered to be one of the best drivers on the grid, alongside the likes of Hamilton, Alonso and Vettel, the driver he beat at Red Bull. But was he really on the same level as those drivers? Or was this a case where Ricciardo became Vettel's teammate in a season where he was not only disgruntled about the new regulations, he wasn't motivated by the prospect of driving for Red Bull anymore? While Vettel's performances saw a massive dip in 2014, Ricciardo was made to look even better in this situation. The first true indication of Daniel Ricciardo not being at the level of a top driver became apparent when he was teammates with Max Verstappen. Verstappen, just a teenager at the time, was still very rough around the edges, and in 2016 and 2017, overall Ricciardo was the more impressive of the two. However, even in these two seasons, there were races where Verstappen put everything together and left Ricciardo trailing. This happened at the 2016 Brazilian Grand Prix, where Verstappen pretty much schooled everyone on the grid. Or even in Malaysia 2017, when Verstappen won the race, but Ricciardo would finish around 22 seconds behind. By the 2018 season, Verstappen had Ricciardo figured out and beat him comfortably. After a short stint at Renault, where Ricciardo went up against and beat Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon, it was him joining McLaren that has led to a tragic realization for the Australian. Now, that realization is not that he is a bad driver. It is not that he could not compete with the best on the grid. It is that he cannot be a world champion. In F1, there are only a limited number of teams with whom you can challenge for the title and win it. The thing is, all of these teams look for truly elite talents. Talents like Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris or George Russell. Daniel Ricciardo is just not that. He is a great driver and truly deserves to be on the grid, but whenever he goes up against the elites, he gets found out and misses a tenth or two almost every time. Now, having said that, I don't mean that all his struggles against Norris are a reflection of where he stands at the moment on the F1 grid. Not at all. The Norris situation has more to do with the entire design philosophy that hasn't worked with Ricciardo. In a different ecosystem, Ricciardo would do a much better job against Norris, just like he did in Monza last season. Ricciardo is a fantastic driver, just the only problem being he is one level below the true elites on the grid. In the 2014 season, once Ricciardo had dispatched Sebastian Vettel out of the team, a dream was born for the Australian. A dream in which he was the best driver on the grid and a future world champion. That dream has never looked like fulfilling itself throughout his career. And with the way his Monaco Grand Prix ended, the tragic end of him realizing that he will never fulfill that dream is right in front of us. Now, unlike various pundits, I don't think Ricciardo has lost his competitiveness. Nor does it appear that he cannot do a good job in an F1 car. However, I do feel he cannot do that in a McLaren. That marriage has reached its expiry date, and at the end of the season, we might be looking at the two entities parting ways for the better. But that's where the question comes up about Ricciardo's future. While the Australian loves racing and is only 32 years old, there are indications that his future in F1 might not involve him fighting for the title. Will he have the motivation to continue if he knows there is very little chance of him achieving his dream? Although, yes, it is tough to expect a driver to still have the motivation to attack the racetrack with the same intensity, knowing that the prospect of a title in the future is off the table. However, if Ricciardo wishes to stay, there could be a possible seat open for him at Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin for the next season should he be willing to take it. At just 32 years old, he is not a has-been by any means. He is still a very capable driver who is still very good and should deliver strong results. If Ricciardo wants to continue, there is a strong possibility of a seat either at Aston Martin or at Alfa Romeo. But sadly, that's about it. There is no climb to a front-running seat at the moment. More importantly, it does appear that Ricciardo has finally found his ceiling in Formula 1. And that ceiling is just a level below the best drivers on the grid. Ricciardo was always a very good driver. Maybe even a championship candidate in the right car as well. But a truly elite driver in Formula 1? Maybe not. Maybe that was just not his ceiling. And maybe that is why Daniel Ricciardo's career dream of winning a world championship one day has finally and tragically come to an end. So these are my views about Daniel Ricciardo's current career situation. What do you guys think? Do you think there is still hope for a title in the future? Do let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching and see you next time.